If you are thinking about moving to the Tampa, Florida area, this video is for you. Here we go. I'm Sam, and this is the Living in Tampa, Florida channel, where we make videos about what it's like to live and move to the Tampa, Florida area. If that's something you want to follow along with, don't forget to subscribe. I'm also a licensed realtor in Florida, so if you have real estate specific questions, I'm always here to help. The COVID-19 pandemic had people moving all over the US, with Florida as a very common destination. I actually moved to Florida in the midst of the pandemic. I moved in May of 2020. I moved from Colorado all the way down to Florida, making the drive 2 times, one time with a big truck and one time with just a small car. But we chose this area because my wife grew up in the area. We have a small child and we wanted to be closer to family, and it ended up being a good opportunity for us to make the move. Not everyone is moving because of opportunity. Some people are moving because they have to, but some people are moving just because they want to. You know, maybe you can work from home now, or maybe you have the option to relocate with your current employer and you want to live somewhere warmer, you want to live somewhere different in some kind of way, and maybe Florida has your attention for that reason. In the midst of that, a lot of people are choosing Tampa. Some recent data came out that 20% of the population in Tampa actually moved here since 2017. That doesn't mean the population has grown by 20%, but that 20% of the current occupants have moved here within the past 3 to 4 years. So if you've chosen this area, you're not alone. One of the common issues with moving across the country is trying to understand that area just based off information that's online. This is a chore. This is very hard, and that's probably why you're watching this video. I hope that I can provide some clarity that will help you understand the area and help you feel confident in making the move and making the decision for yourself and for your family. This is actually the first video in a series of videos that's going to be called Tampa Explained. In this series, we're going to spend a lot of time looking at the map and evaluating each area of the greater Tampa Bay area. Some of the ways that the information online can be really confusing is cost. You know, you see median costs of the area published, and you know, maybe it says that the median cost is $220,000, and you read that and think, oh, I can get a house for $220,000. Then you read other information that say prices have gone up like crazy, the market's so competitive, and then you think, oh, I can't get that for this, and what is the truth in the midst of this? It's also easy to assume based off the information online that people are moving here and paying cash for homes, and that's not always the case. It is a little more common than before, but it's still not the norm. Also, with some of the free speech and free press laws in Florida, it's easy to think Florida is crazy. You know, maybe there's alligators everywhere, maybe everything floods, maybe trees are falling on homes and cars all the time, maybe sinkholes are eating homes, and these kind of clickable stories are published more frequently in Florida because of some laws that promote free press. Of course, they want you to click, so they're going to make it seem as extreme as possible. Another thing that could be confusing is, what does Tampa feel like? Is it a big city? Is it a small town? Does it feel like a beach town? Does it feel like a tourist trap? All those kind of things are things that can be confusing to understand based off information that's online. Oftentimes you see beaches for the Tampa area advertised online, and a lot of these little beach towns are actually marketing to other areas in the country to draw you here. But then you find out that there's actually no beaches in Tampa. They're actually in other towns to the west of Tampa, but they're still in the Tampa area. And then you question, how far is that? Does that matter? Do I need to be close to the beach? Do I want to be close to the beach? All of those are questions that you are asking when you're thinking about moving to an area like this. And unfortunately, I do not feel like there is much concise information to help you make those decisions online. I want to look at the whole area, spend a lot of time looking at the map and evaluating each of these areas based off the same criteria over and over. And hopefully this criteria will help you make the decision for yourself and empower you to make the decision for yourself. I was recently somewhere, I don't want to name the business or the people, and someone asked me where I live. And I was somewhere in the Tampa area, and I told them I live in Tarpon Springs, and their immediate response was, "That sucks." I was quiet. I didn't need to respond, and I just kind of thought about, why would this person say that? And it was clear that he didn't think living in Tarpon Springs seemed like a good place to live. But for me and my family and my situation, it is the perfect place because of all kinds of dynamics. We have family that's very close to us. We live really close to the water. We live really close to the beach. We are walking distance from the park and the library and the farmer's market and the liquor store and Walgreens, and all these things are really accessible, and we really like where we are right now. As he said that, I realized that that may be the feeling you get when you search online. That in the overall Tampa areas, some places are good to live and some places are bad to live. But that is far too simple of an explanation. It is much more complicated. So the criteria that we're going to talk about for each of these places, number one is proximity to things. So we'll talk about proximity to the airport, proximity to shopping and beaches and the city, because being close to the things you want to be close to is important. That's an important part of where you live. Number two, we're going to talk about style. So like the style of homes, whether it's like a stucco coastal kind of feel or a craftsman feel in these neighborhoods. And then we'll also talk about the style of town, whether it's like a city feel, a suburban feel, a beach town kind of feel, or even more of a rural feel. Tampa is a very complex area with all kinds of options all around the city. The third criteria we're going to talk about is size. So, the Tampa area is right around 3 million people, but each of these areas feels bigger or smaller. For example, the town I live in, Tarpon Springs, is around 24,000 people, and it feels significantly smaller than a town like Clearwater, which is closer to 100,000 people. Even though these towns are just like right next to each other, the size of them is still felt. I grew up in a really small town in Oklahoma with like land all around the town, and it felt small, but part of that feeling of size was the padding in between all the towns of just land. And this area doesn't have that as much. Towns really just kind of butt up against each other, but still in the midst of each of those towns, they have their own feel. They're all different sizes, and that is reflected in this criteria. Okay, the fourth criteria is cost. So cost of living is important, but that mostly revolves around the cost of housing. A lot of things are going to be the same, whether it's utilities or internet or car insurance, but some other costs will be different in each area. So we'll look at the cost of housing, some property tax and home insurance, and even flood insurance for some areas of Tampa, which this is a common misconception. Flood insurance is not required in this entire area. Sometimes even if you're in a flood zone, your home isn't required to have flood insurance. It really depends on how the home is built, whether or not your lender will require you to carry flood insurance. I have flood insurance on my home because it's like at 5 feet above sea level, where you're supposed to be like 15 feet above sea level. Most people will hear me say that and think I made a bad decision, but again, it was the right decision for us at this time. So with these 4 criteria, as we talk through each of the areas, as we evaluate them based on these criteria, I want this to help you find the perfect balance for you. Because the perfect balance for you does exist, and that might involve some compromises, but that is part of the balance, part of the give and take of choosing an area to live. So let's start by just looking at the counties. The Tampa area is mostly made up of these 4 counties. Hillsborough County, which is kind of the main county, the city county. Pinellas County, which is more of the beach towns and the well-known area of St. Petersburg. To the north, you have Pasco County, and then even further north, you have Hernando County, which doesn't always feel like part of the Tampa area, but it is technically part of the Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater metropolitan statistical area. So I do want to include it because there are still people that live in Hernando County and are very involved in the Tampa area. But just breaking it down to these 4 levels is not enough. Hillsborough County is very complicated. You have very cool old money areas like Hyde Park, and you have downtown, and then you have Ybor City, which is like a Cuban district, and then you have suburbs out to the east. So even one county is so complicated. So in this series of videos, we're going to break down each of these areas and focus on these criteria for each of those areas. So the areas that we are going to talk about will be like Midtown, which is kind of like right in the middle of Tampa. I know some people won't like that I call it Midtown, but then we'll look at South Tampa. We'll look at the west suburbs that are in Hillsborough County and the east suburbs that are in Hillsborough County. Then we'll go over to Pinellas County and we'll look at South Pinellas and North Pinellas. And then we'll go up to the north suburbs of the Tampa metro area, which are mostly in Pasco County. And then we'll look a little bit beyond that as well. So just by breaking it down into these sections, my goal is to help you understand some of the more complex features of this Tampa area. I hope you found this video at the right time for you if you're considering moving to the Tampa area. And I hope to continue adding value to your search. If you do need help from a real estate professional in the area, please don't hesitate to reach out. My phone number and email are right there on the screen. I will see you soon.